The latest episode of Real Time with Bill Maher got heated fast. Maher, who's never afraid to speak his mind, found himself up against a wave of strong woke opinions, ideas that, frankly, don't always line up with common sense. Things took a turn when he brought up the hot-button issue of school closures during the pandemic. That's when the conversation really went off the rails.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Republicans would say that it was the teachers' union, which is very strong and democratically controlled, that made sure that the schools did not reopen.
Well,
and also that it's not the kids who were dying from it.
Right, and that's the big shame, is that the kids who were getting hurt the most by it were the ones whose parents don't have the resources to say, well, the public school's bad, let me take them out and put them in a private school. Or, sure, I can homeschool them, I have the bandwidth to do that. It was poor kids, kids of color, they're the ones who have seen the biggest learning loss as a result of all of this.
Malcolm?
And the back and forth, it quickly spiraled. This wasn't just a petty debate. It touched on serious issues like the long-term impact on kids' education and the ripple effects across society.
I saw that today in the paper also. A lot of the students who went away during the pandemic never came back. What do you make of that?
School is good. Community education, communal education is good because you have to develop social skills. The hardest part about school is like recess and gym and all the times you have to interact with all those other little 10-year-olds. So I think it's really important for kids to be back in school.
I do too. But I mean...
Well, it can create a fiscal problem for a school too. So most schools, the way they get their funding is how many kids are enrolled. If all of a sudden your enrollment falls by 5 or 10%, your funding falls by 5 or 10%. And so the fact that public schools, for so many parents, they said, I don't know if I trust this institution to educate my child anymore. It's also going to potentially make the schools worse or have to do more with less when that student funding is now gone.
And also, I mean, you say you think kids should be in school. It's the Democratic Party, your party, that is blamed for that not happening during the pandemic.
Right, and it happened in Republican states and Democratic states, and all those leaders were doing the best they could with the science that was available. But there were some. Ezekiel Emanuel, a doctor who was advising Biden, was saying at the time, this is going to hurt kids. We should be really careful about closing schools. And I remember Zeke saying that. So it's... But I don't want to bang on people who were trying to save lives when we lost 1 million people, that stinking virus. We're still losing 500-600 a day.
But it was clear much earlier on than many Democratic leaders in particular.
Well, the Republicans didn't put them back in school either.
They did a lot faster. And that's...
Yeah, I mean...
But before we dive deeper, have you ever stopped to think about what it really means to go against the mainstream?
And also, I mean, you say you think kids should be in school. It's the Democratic Party, your party, that is blamed for that not happening during the pandemic.
Right, and it happened in Republican states and Democratic states, and all those leaders were doing the best they could with the science that was...
Seriously, if you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button. Go ahead, I'll wait. All set? Great. Welcome aboard. Let's get back to what went down on Real Time with Bill Maher as expected. Maher opened with the elephant in the room. School closures during the pandemic. And as usual, he didn't hold back. He focused on something that often gets brushed aside, the real harm those closures caused, especially for underprivileged kids, the ones who always seem to get the worst of it when politics take over. But his panel, they weren't having it. Instead of addressing the core issue, they leaned hard on the same old defense, the science, like it was some sacred text justifying every decision made back then. Let's be honest, by now, that argument is wearing thin. The science wasn't always clear-cut, and watching people try to build a case on it felt like watching someone balance a house of cards. How many times have we heard, we did the best we could with the science? Probably too many. Maher wasn't buying it, not from Democrats, not from Republicans. His point wasn't to single out one side, but to call out how politics, on both ends, shaped the choices that were made. And those choices had very different outcomes. Take Florida, for instance. They reopened schools way earlier than many Democratic-run states. Was that risky? Maybe. But it also raised an important question. Were these decisions really about what was best for the kids, or were they just political moves? At the heart of Maher's argument was this. The people in charge, unions, bureaucrats, the whole system, seemed more focused on protecting their own agendas and doing what was truly right for students.
Everything you said is valid. All that is an issue. This seemed to be just 5 cops who wanted to wail on a guy for no apparent reason. If that kid had been white, would they have not done that?
No, they wouldn't have. Period. We all know that.
So 5 black.
I mean, there is a color issue within law enforcement altogether.
Even among black cops.
Yeah, because they're cops.
Because they're cops.
This is a mindset. The same way we have in the military. We have a mindset, right? I think policing now has moved so far away from community service towards self-preservation. They go to courses like the On Killing program on how to do self-preservation, how to battle like a special forces soldier. What they need to do is they need to start thinking more along the old beat cop, protecting the community by knowing the community and not seeing. I don't understand it, right? I'm a big guns guy. Not every black man is the one who has the firearm, right? They assume this block is all armed. Maybe that's because some of them are. But I'm going to tell you, there is a large proportion of the white population in the United States who routinely carry guns openly, brazenly, have stickers on their cars, and cops just say, oh, these are the kind of guys that I go to range with. Good job. Kyle Rittenhouse, for example. Right? They threw him water that night. If I had been out on the street with a long rifle like that, they would have been throwing lead down there, freedom bullets at me.
Maher didn't hold back when it came to teachers' unions, especially in Democrat-run areas. He pointed out that these unions had a big say in whether schools reopened, and in many cases, they pushed back even when mounting evidence showed how harmful long-term closures were for kids. The bigger impact on communities he then shifted to the deeper impact on communities, especially communities of color. This is where Maher got really fired up. He highlighted how countless children, especially those without access to private schools or tutors, were suddenly thrown off track. While wealthier families had options, many others were left behind. That IT raised tough questions. Were these decisions really made with kids' best interests in mind? Did anyone stop to truly consider the long-term damage? Did leaders even listen to the voices of the people most affected? The amount of blame being passed around was, frankly, outrageous. Maher called it out. He challenged his audience to stop blindly trusting the so-called science that was often used to justify keeping schools shut. He made it clear, schools aren't just buildings. They are crucial for kids' learning and development, calling out hypocrisy. Then things got even more intense. Maher accused officials of hiding behind the "we were saving lives" excuse. Sure, that's a noble idea, but was it used to shut down real debate? Was it a way to avoid facing the truth that maybe lockdowns weren't the only option? He also hammered away at the lack of accountability. His guests were clearly uncomfortable. Their responses felt rehearsed, vague lines about doing what was necessary. But Maher wasn't buying it. This wasn't a simple situation, and he knew it. But ignoring alternative views, especially ones backed by legitimate science, only made things worse. His frustration boiled over, not just because of the past mistakes, but because no one seemed willing to admit them. He urged viewers to ask a hard question. Did anyone in power actually learn anything from all this? Digging into systemic issues, then Maher took that same energy and turned to broader issues, like law enforcement and systemic injustice. Recent events have brought those topics back into focus, and Maher wasn't afraid to call out the pattern. Marginalized people being pushed aside while the system protects itself. He questioned why weak excuses still get used to defend broken systems, especially in policing. And when recent controversial cases came up, Maher's tone shifted from skeptical to outright angry. It was a reaction many people likely share, the feeling of watching the same injustices happen again and again, just under new headlines. Maher didn't tiptoe around it. His message was blunt. We can't keep trusting systems that repeatedly fail the most vulnerable. The episode, in many ways, became a wake-up call, not just about pandemic decisions, but about the deeper inequalities that continue to shape our society.
If Tyree Nichols had been white, would we be seeing a different response?
I'm afraid to say that we would have. I mean, I think that we would have had a slow walk of the indictments. But the issue here isn't about the color of the policeman. The issue is that the tactics, techniques, procedures, and training of these law enforcement officers on these special teams. Way back when I went through a SWAT officer's course with Capitol Hill Police and some other police forces that were there to learn how to be SWAT cops. The techniques that we were shown back then were not always guns forward, guns all the time. Now the average police officer is trained to believe that he's, number one job is to come home at night. I agree with that 1,000%. But there are jobs there. There are things there that are just clearly require an intervention that does not require you to draw your weapon.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't, I mean, that's certainly...
Maher asked his panel, and all of us watching, one last time, are these systems really working for us, or are we just caught in a machine that runs itself for its own benefit? His frustration wasn't just for the people in the studio. Through the screen, his words reached anyone willing to listen. He pushed hard against the gap between criticism and action, urging us to think carefully about where our loyalties lie. Was Maher's tough talk a sharp call out of a distant, out-of-touch elite? Maybe, but it was more than that. It was a challenge to move beyond disappointment, to understand why it matters, and to act when ideology blinds us instead of reason and compassion. What do you think? Do you agree with Maher's take? Or do you see things differently? I'd really like to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below, and let's keep this conversation going.